Consistency is key. How many times have you heard me say that? Well, there's so much truth to that, but I think sharing in today's episode is going to bring a better light to the picture to really help you guys out with this. So that's why I want to share with you guys 5 things that I personally do. And these are the 5 things that help me stay lean all year round. And what do I mean about being lean? Let's first define that. Well, I would say around summertime, the lowest, probably about 8, 9, 10% body fat. And then typically around the winter months, I would say all the way up to, let's say 13, 14, maybe max 15%, right? Where I'm always seeing visible abs, so to speak, right? I don't like to go much lower. Like I said, like 8% really being the bottom of the barrel for me. And it just depends. If I have a photo shoot or something like that I'm getting ready for, I don't like going much leaner than that just because it's not fun, right? Don't make it seem like, hey, just because you're 5% body fat, it's fun. It's not. Trust me. Okay? It's not. So I like being around that 10% average because I can really enjoy the foods, enjoy the drinks that I truly love, and not have to stress about it too much. The leaner I get, the more you got to be a little bit OCD and really pinpoint and focused on everything. So putting that aside, right, now that you know, hey, what does that mean being lean all year round between, let's just say 8% to 15% body fat, here are the 5 things that I do. And I promise you, if you just do this specifically for your body type and your goals, and you can consistently do that, it's going to be very easy. It's going to be very effortless for you as well. The first thing is hitting my protein goal. So I don't weigh myself a lot. Typically when I do, I'm always around the same weight. And that's anywhere from, I would say the leaner I get, 185, right? All the way up to maybe like 200 pounds. I'm always within that plus or minus range, so to speak, But it doesn't really matter so much about the weight for me. What matters the most is the protein. So you guys hear me say, right? Try your best to have at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Now, once again, my heaviest, I'll be around 200 pounds. My leanest or lowest, I should say, on the number on the scale, and that's, once again, around 10 or lower body fat percentage points, I'm typically around 185. Regardless, I'm still constantly hitting my protein goal. Here's how I do it for me, though, okay? If, let's say, I'm not focused on getting shredded or anything like that, I'm just, hey, happy, 12%, 13% body fat, I will always have around 220 grams of protein. So remember, you guys hear me say all the time, you're right, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But as I like to say it, is like the more protein you eat, 1, it's more satiating. 2, it's higher up on the thermic effect of food to really help you burn more body fat. So 220 on the low, but when I get very, very cut, let's say photo shoot ready and everything like that, I actually increase up my protein to about 240 to 250 grams. I would say on average 250 grams of protein per day. Okay. Now, regardless, even if I'm traveling or going out to eat or whatever the case may be, I'm never going below 200 grams of protein. All right. So for me, remember, these are the 5 things that I personally do to stay lean and ripped all year round. Number 1 is protein. Nutrition. I always say the working out's the sprinkles on the cake, right? Plain and simple. It's the icing. So like the nutrition, that's the batter. And specifically with me, I focus on that protein goal. I don't stress so much about the carbs. I don't stress so much about the fats, and neither should you either. But if you want to get really, really lean, try to increase your protein goal. That's my personal recommendation, is just like, hey, it's only going to help you more. I would always say this, right? The bare minimum protein you need is, take your body weight, multiply it by 0.8, and the maximum is take your body weight, multiply it by 1.5. So it just depends. Obviously at some point it might not be the, most sustainable thing if all you're doing is eating meats and protein powders and protein bars and cottage cheese and Greek yogurt. But for me, it works. I like the way I look. To me, I look more as far as food being something to fuel my body properly rather than, oh, like I want to have variety, so to speak. I could eat the same foods all over every day. Doesn't really matter to me. So number one, protein. Number two is strength training. Okay. And I focus at least bare minimum, right? Hitting each muscle group, training it with progressive overload, the right amount of frequency and whatnot, right? At least one time per week. Now, I always say this, play it safe, right? Be smart with it. Train each muscle group at least 2 times per week. But hey, some weeks if I'm traveling or whatever the case may be, if let's say there's not even a gym around and let's say I'm on vacation with my family, it's going to be tough. So I'll train, at least each muscle group 1 time per week. That's a thing for me, right? Even if I'm traveling, I'm going to go find, a gym to go to. I'm going to go sign up for a day pass, whatever the case may be, where I know I have to train my muscles. Even though it's just the icing on the cake, it's still more of a form of discipline for me, And I'm a big fan of, hey, if you don't use it, surely you will lose it. I'm not saying you're going to lose your muscle mass in 1 week of not working out, but still, it's one of those things where, to me, the gym makes me feel better mentally because I get to push some weights. I enjoy doing that. And so typically on average, I'm always training each muscle group, 2 times per week. But hey, this is the sake of going on what I do all year round. So some weeks if I'm traveling or can't make it to the gym, hey, those weeks I'm only going to be training each muscle group maybe 1 time per week. And maybe that's just I'm signing up for a day pass at the gym or maybe 2 days and I'm doing an upper body, lower body, something like that, whatever the case may be, Now, the third thing, and this is very important, is this getting my steps in. I'm a huge fan of NEAT, which stands for Non-Exercise Activity Thermogenesis. And I know for a fact I got to get my steps in, right? It's not like I have to, so to speak, but it's like I look forward to it, where I get my steps in. That's kind of like the mindset because I know how it makes me feel when I move. I say this all the time. Movement, being active it's like the cornerstone to just longevity, so to speak. When I'm going to be in my 60s and 70s and 80s, sure, I'm probably not going to be banging around with the weights, but I'm going to be moving, right? And that's very, very key for longevity purposes. And I always say it's just like the movement that we get in now, it's a really good natural energy boost. Don't believe me? If you're dead tired and you're working a long, hard day, guess what? Go home. Instead of crashing on the couch, drinking a beer, watching some Netflix, take your family and go for a walk. You're instantly going to feel a lot more energized. But also, it's so easy to do. That's the key. It is so easy to do. Anybody can do it. Also, somebody like myself that deals with, back pain from time to time, getting just more movement in really just helps with more blood flow. When I'm sedentary too much, like sitting down, I can just tell that my back starts to harden and knotting up a little bit, and I don't like that, right? So just being cautious of getting some movement in really kind of helps me out. So this could average anywhere from, maybe 5,000 steps on the very low, which is rare for me, but I would say all the way up to maybe 15,000 steps a day. It just depends. The winter months, I'm trying my best to hit around 8,000 steps. Summertime, right? Hey, yeah, I'm outside playing basketball. I'm doing yard work. I'm going for a walk in the park, right? Like, I'm easily getting 15,000 steps. So it just kind of depends. Now, the last thing, and this is probably one of the most important things, is stress management. So if you remember, the first thing, and these are the list of the 5 things that I typically focus on to stay lean all year round. Number 1, focusing on my protein intake. Number 2, resistance training, right? The strength training. Number 3, getting my steps in. Number 4, I should say, we're skipping a beat, right? Number 4 is the sleep, right? And then we'll get to the last one, which is very, very important, right? But the sleep. So sleep for me is very, very, very important because at the end of the day, I always thought it was, hey, I'll sleep when I'm dead, grind. But the more I'm getting just, business savvy, so to speak, I'm looking at terms of like, team and staff and operations and, all these different things, I have to show up and be fully cautious. I have to show up and be fully present. I have to show up with just being alert. And if I'm dead tired, I can just tell that just carries on. If I'm getting less than, let's say, 5 hours of sleep for a night, I feel it. I regret it. Like everything goes down south the next day, whether that's my workouts, whether that's my functionality at work, whether that's my, discipline with my nutrition. Because think about it, right? If you're dead tired, you didn't get a good night's sleep, it's very easy to not be so, you don't have the willpower, right? Plain and simple. So it's very easy to go into your cravings and whatnot and, be a little bit more susceptible to these, food temptations out there. So I focus the very low 6 hours on average, but I really try my hardest to get 7-8 hours of sleep, good quality sleep. I know that's something that a lot of guys struggle with. Personally for me, this is just what works. I like to take sleepy time tea. I like to drink that. I like to consume that 30 minutes before I go to sleep. I also like to just turn off all electronics, whether it's clocking out at work, whether it's turning off my phone. I'm not scrolling around aimlessly on, YouTube and Facebook and, whatever the case may be. No, like all electronics off. And I'll just try to meditate. That's it. Just like focus on my own breath work. I'm a big fan of meditating. And it just helps me out get more quality sleep, so to speak. So that's, the recovery aspect, which is once again, very, very important. Now, lastly, number 5, and this is one of the most important things. Okay. So remember the first one, protein, second, the working out, the strength training, third being the steps, fourth being the sleep, right? Now, fifth is stress management. Okay. When it comes down to stress management, this is the number one thing that always hurts and hinders guys on their fat loss journey. They don't understand, and most people don't, that high amounts of stress really have a big factor, a huge factor, I should say, when it comes to fat loss results, because it spikes your cortisol levels. Cortisol is your body's natural stress hormone. So underneath a lot of stress, your cortisol levels are spiked, they're elevated, and it's very hard. I'll just say it like that. Very, very difficult to burn body fat. And so stress could be at home, stress could be at work, stress could be anything, right? Maybe too fixated on progress and, I'm not seeing the results I want, right? So you're all stressed out about it instead of trusting the process, having some faith and confidence that it's all going to work out in the end. There could be so many things, right? You want these big, huge goals. You put them up on a pedestal, right? Next thing you know, you're a few steps back. Stress, So when it comes down to stress, and I was thinking really about how do I summarize this to really help you out with, some extra value. It's to, one, not stress the small things, but two, understand this, that even the big things, you're probably not in control over. That's it. You're probably not in control over. Most of the time that people are stressed out, it's because things that they can't control over, or it's the smallest little things that don't mean anything. Let's just say, 5 weeks down the road, or, a few months down the road, or whatever the case may be, few years, it's not going to be anything that's going to be a long-term factor. But yet people stress out so much about just the littlest things and then the things that don't really even matter at the end of the day. And so when it comes down, what I personally like to do for stress management, I'm huge into working on my mindset. Most of you guys know that my morning routine, that's set in stone, right? That's my affirmations, that's my gratitude journaling, that is my meditation, that's my visualization, that's my prayer, right? All of that, where I'm focusing on my mindset, because that really helps paint the picture of okay, hey, we're going to be dealing with some hiccups. It's the inevitable, right? There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows to life, but at the end of the day, the lows, you can make them so much easier to get over and so much faster by not stressing out so much, by thinking it's this life or death situation. Meditating is a huge thing that I recommend to everybody, especially when it comes down to lowering stress. You can take things out there like holy basil, ashwagandha. These are herbal supplements that help you lower your cortisol levels down. But just keep in mind that with any kind of supplement, it's typically just a band-aid to the gunshot wound. So it's just it might help you for the time being, but if let's say you're dealing with stress at home and you don't know how to confront things with your spouse and talk things, whatever the case may be, taking a whole bunch of ashwagandha or holy basil isn't going to help the situation, because that issue is going to be a revolving door eventually. Same thing with that work, same thing with whatever the case may be. And this is why I like meditating, because it really helps you, one, put into a bigger picture of like, hey, why are we here, right? Like, are we here to be all stressed out and burnt out and bent out of shape about this? Or, hey, can I just put my ego to the side and admit that I'm wrong and maybe just, confront with that person like, hey, I apologize. It's not the easiest thing for most guys to do because, they got to put their egos to the side for this one. But at the end of the day, when you do that, it's just like you're instantly feeling less anxiety, less worry, less stress. And so these are the 5 things that I like to focus on, right, to help me stay lean all year round. Remember, protein intake. I'm crushing it with that. Always. Hands down. That is my bread and butter, right? Is eating my protein, okay? The second is my strength training, my resistance training. Third being the steps. Fourth being my sleep and my recovery. And lastly, 5 is that stress, which is very, very important. I always say it like this too, is as we just put things to the close here, is, there's 365 days in a year. So you put in there the birthdays, the celebrations, sick days, anniversaries, travels, whatever the case may be. If we had to mark up out of the whole entire year 65 days of those, just put them aside as like, hey, these are my wash days, right? Or my off days where I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about my nutrition. I'm not going to worry about if I'm hitting my workouts or not. I'm not going to stress. And I see that where people try to be so focused on, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, because they're thinking in their head, I have to do this to get XYZ results. And if something ever cuts them off from doing this, it takes them away from that, which is their initial goal. And so have the right mindset that, at the end of the day, you're probably going to fall off the wagon. I definitely do all the time, but it's just like you pick yourself right back up the next day, brush off your shoulders, you get right back to work. So at the end of the day, don't stress the small stuff. Remember, consistency is key. And at the end of the day, just realize here that, this is life. Nobody has to be obsessed with health and fitness. You should just, in order to make it fit in better with your lifestyle, learn how to create habits out of it instead of focusing on, hey, I have to do this and being super, super obsessed with it. We see that all the time, and I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anybody. So focus on creating those sustainable habits. These are just a few that works specifically for me, that helps me stay lean all year round. Who knows? Maybe it can help you out as well. As always, guys, this has been Coach Joe with the Heart Athletics Podcast. I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts.